The first time I tried to charge more for my work, my voice cracked. I had been doing that job for years, the results were solid, the client was happy, but still, when it came time to say the price, my throat tightened. I smiled, lowered the price, and walked away angry. Not at him, at myself. That day I realized the issue wasn't the money. It was how I saw myself. A lot of women think they need more studying, more prep, more organization, when in reality, what's missing is internal permission. Permission to grow, to charge, to be recognized. Money and self-esteem are connected in a way no one teaches you, but you feel it. You feel it when you shrink yourself so you won't seem too much. When you spend to feel better but don't invest in yourself. When you work twice as hard, yet feel ashamed to name your price. In this video, you'll understand why your bank account often reflects less how hard you work and more how much you believe you deserve. If this story sounds familiar, subscribe to the channel and hit that like button. Sometimes it all starts with allowing yourself to hear this kind of conversation. For a long time, I avoided looking at my bank account. It felt like opening a message from an ex. You already know it'll make you feel bad, but you look anyway. But the real problem was never the balance. It was what that number seemed to say, or rather what I let it say about me. I grew up hearing things like, better to have little and be honest, or money doesn't bring happiness, it brings trouble. And without realizing it, I started seeing wealth as something distant, dangerous, almost wrong. Like earning well was a privilege reserved for another kind of woman, smarter, colder, luckier, definitely not like me. The result? I spent years accepting lower pay than I deserved, saying yes to clients who paid late, or never, and only buying things on sale, not because I couldn't afford more, but because I felt guilty buying anything just for pleasure. I used to cover it up by saying I was a minimalist, that I was financially conscious, but deep down it was just low self-esteem dressed up as maturity. It wasn't until a friend called me out, very directly, that it hit me. She said, "Do you realize that whenever someone compliments you, you brush it off? That you never accept recognition for what you do well? That even when you get paid, you apologize like it was a favor?" It stung to hear, but it was true. The way I saw myself, as someone constantly needing to prove her worth, was shaping all my financial decisions. I didn't negotiate, I didn't charge fairly, I didn't invest in myself. Because deep down, I didn't believe I was worth it. And here's the key point. Money doesn't just respond to logic. It responds to your energy. If you position yourself as someone who accepts crumbs, guess what the world gives you? Exactly, a crumbs. Women with healthy self-esteem aren't afraid to say, "This is the price," without flinching. They don't justify their rates, they don't apologize for thriving. They know that valuing themselves isn't arrogance, it's self-respect. And that wanting comfort, security, abundance doesn't make you shallow. It makes you aware of your worth. When I started shifting my mindset, external changes followed naturally. I remember the first time I turned down a well-paid project because the client treated me badly. It was easy money, but it came with built-in disrespect. I took a deep breath, said no, and hung up the phone shaking. I was scared, but I also felt something new, self-respect. 2 weeks later, I closed a deal with a company that paid me more, treated me better, and even referred me to others. The money came in, but more importantly, it came in smoothly, without guilt, without shame, without needing to shrink myself. The truth is, for many women, the biggest financial block isn't lack of opportunity. It's the habit of making themselves small, of putting themselves last, of accepting too little, thinking that's being humble. But let me tell you something with all the love. Humility is not the same as scarcity. You can be grateful for what you have and still want more. You can love where you come from and still want to go further. You can be generous, loving, kind, and still charge what you're worth. This mindset shift starts on the inside, because no spreadsheet can fix a woman who deep down doesn't believe she deserves to have money. One afternoon during a casual chat, my mom smiled and said, "The truly rich are those who sleep with a clear conscience." I got what she meant. It was about valuing what really matters, about dignity. But for a long time, that phrase became a silent alarm in my head every time I tried to aim higher. It felt like growing financially was a betrayal. Like earning more automatically made me less conscious, less human, less of a good daughter. And the cruelest part? No one ever said that to me directly, but the looks, the comments, the reactions, they all built that message. Silently. Growing up in a home where money was always counted, carefully divided, and associated with worry shapes you. The way the women in your family spoke or didn't speak about money impacts your adult life more than you might think. In my case, money talk was filled with tension. There was always a sense of fear in the air. Fear of not having enough, of not being able to manage, of an emergency striking. When someone earned a little extra, it felt like luck, a temporary relief, not a new normal. And that creates a tough emotional logic to break. Money is unstable, rare, and dangerous. So what do? We build defense mechanisms. We learn to settle. We learn not to dream too big. We learn that safe is better than grand. And without realizing it, we start planning a life based on the fear of losing, not the desire to grow. Now tell me, how is a woman supposed to negotiate a salary, start a business, or invest in something she believes in if her emotional foundation tells her that having too much is risky? How can she allow herself to prosper if everything she's learned says that those who rise lose touch with their roots? The answer is simple and harsh. She won't. She'll go in circles. She'll sabotage promising projects. She'll hesitate when it's time to charge. She'll postpone the move that could change everything. And she'll justify it all by saying now's not the time, that she needs more security, that it's better not to risk it. But the truth? She's trying to stay loyal to her family's story. And that often means staying small. Out of loyalty, out of love, out of fear of seeming ungrateful. And look, I get it. We don't want to disappoint those who loved us with the little they had. But here's a thought that changed everything for me. You don't honor your family's story by repeating scarcity. You honor it by rising above. Because when you grow, when you allow yourself to prosper, you open a new door for those who come after. You become a reference. You show that it's possible. I remember the first time my mom saw my new home. She looked around, emotional, and said, "You have a life I never dreamed of for myself, but always wished for you." That hit me hard, because I realized she never held me back. I was carrying guilt she never asked me to carry. The truth is, a lot of what seems like your financial personality is just an old script you've never questioned. But you can. In fact, you must. Question what you were taught. Rewrite the phrases you grew up hearing. Give new meaning to old fears. You don't need to repeat patterns to show love. Growth is also an act of affection. For a long time, I confused treating myself with self-sabotage. I'd buy things I didn't even want that much. I'd put the most expensive cafe drink on a payment plan just to feel like I was giving myself a gift. And you know what happened the next day? Guilt, stress, and that weird feeling of emptiness, like none of it actually soothed what really hurt. Over time, I understood. The problem wasn't the money I spent. It was the intention behind the spending. Low self-esteem creates financial behaviors disguised as self-care. We buy to compensate, to silence the discomfort, to fill a void that's not always material. And the worst part? Often we find it easier to spend than to invest in ourselves. Yes, it sounds contradictory, but it's so real. You can drop $400 in a weekend on takeout, drinks, and impulse shopping, but completely freeze when you see a course that costs the same and could change your career. Why? Because spending on instant pleasure distracts you from the pain. Investing in something that could transform you requires believing that you deserve to grow. And that's the big difference. Women with wounded self-esteem tend to seek relief, not progress. They make choices that numb, not ones that expand. But living numbed out is expensive too. It costs time, energy, opportunities, and yes, real money. I remember a student who once wrote to me, "Son, I always thought I was very smart, but I never saw myself as a wealthy woman. When someone said I had potential, I'd thank them. But deep down, I thought they were exaggerating. Today I realize it's not about intelligence. It's about what I believe I deserve." That stuck with me for days, because it's exactly that. Self-esteem sets the ceiling for how much you allow yourself to earn, invest, grow. If you see yourself as small, your choices will follow. You won't apply for better jobs. You'll charge less. You won't invest in courses, mentorships, or experiences that could open doors. And you'll justify it all with rational-sounding phrases like, "Now's not the time," "I'm not ready," "This isn't for me yet." But deep down, there's a voice saying, "You're not good enough." And if you don't take the reins, that voice will run your financial life for years. Now let me tell you how I started flipping the script. It wasn't with spreadsheets or 1,000 random videos on the internet. It was with one simple question I began asking myself every time I hesitated to invest in me. If I truly loved myself, what would I do right now? That question changed everything. Because when you truly love yourself, you don't abandon yourself. You invest in your growth. You take risks responsibly. You treat yourself as a priority, not as the last item on the list. In practice, that meant paying for a mentorship that gave me butterflies because it was expensive. But it also meant not buying a bag I wanted just to post on Instagram. I realized that investing in myself wasn't a luxury. It was a strategy. Self-esteem isn't a decorative item. It's the foundation of all your choices. And when it's strong, money starts following new instructions. You begin to value your time, your energy, your contribution. You start being more selective about where you put your effort. And your money aligns with that new standard. So next time you feel the urge to spend to soothe or you freeze up in front of an investment in yourself, stop and ask yourself again, if I truly loved myself, what would I do right now? Here's something no one tells you, but it changes everything. You're not going to earn more money if you keep seeing yourself as the woman you used to be. For the longest time, I acted like I was temporary. Like everything I had, the job, the client, the salary, was a favor from the universe. I walked with my shoulders down, spoke softly in meetings, apologized for charging, and didn't even notice. Until one day, in a job interview, the recruiter asked me, "How would you describe yourself in one word?" I froze. Not because I didn't know the answer, but because I realized I didn't like how I saw myself. I pictured someone hardworking, competent, but invisible. That was a wake-up call. If I wanted to live a different life, I had to start seeing myself differently. It wasn't about becoming someone else. It was about stopping the habit of shrinking. That's when I started trying something new. Every time I walked into a space, a meeting, a store, even a social media platform, I'd ask myself, how would the woman I want to be behave? It wasn't pretending. It was practice. I started tweaking small things like straightening my posture, speaking with more conviction, stopping the constant apologizing, and using words that reflected confidence, not doubt. And little by little, the results started showing up. But not by magic. People began treating me according to the energy I projected. Clients started respecting my deadlines. They paid on time. They recommended my work. And most importantly, I stopped begging for recognition. I gave it to myself. Identity comes before outcome. And that doesn't mean wearing heels or expensive clothes, unless that's your thing, of course. It means showing up in the world with the groundedness of someone who knows their worth. And that's something you build. Every day. It doesn't matter where you are right now. What matters is who you're willing to become. I've met women who doubled their income just by changing how they presented themselves. They didn't change the service or the price. They changed the narrative. One of them, a hairdresser, told me, "I stopped saying I do a bit of everything and started saying I specialize in women's cuts that boost self-esteem." I positioned myself, and my clients started seeing me as a premium professional. Do you see the impact of that? It's not just about image. It's about intention. It's about choosing to step out of autopilot and take the lead in your financial journey. If you see yourself as a small, limited, indebted, stuck woman, you'll keep living that story on repeat. But if you start seeing yourself as a woman in progress, strong, deserving, strategic, money starts moving differently. Because the way you see yourself defines what you tolerate. It defines what you accept. And most importantly, it defines how far you'll go. And it doesn't have to be radical. Start small. Change how you talk about money. Swap, "I can't afford it" for "it's not a priority right now." Adjust your posture in a meeting. Let yourself walk into a high-end store without feeling like you're trespassing. Acknowledge the value of what you already bring to the table before expecting the world to do it for you. Every time you act like the woman you want to become, even if the money isn't there yet, you send a clear message: I'm ready. And the universe, the market, the clients, they all start responding. Here's something I had to accept. Self-esteem isn't built with inspirational quotes in the mirror. It's built in your daily life, in the small, repeated, quiet choices, the ones no one sees, but that shape the woman you're becoming. Self-esteem and money have one thing in common. Both grow with consistency. That woman who seems to have been born confident, she probably wasn't. She trained. She adjusted her tone. She challenged her beliefs. She messed up, realigned, kept going. And the same goes for anyone who now lives a more comfortable financial reality. It's practice. It's a decision. It's a choice. The truth is, behind every woman who prospers, there's a series of invisible habits holding that life together. And no, I'm not talking about waking up at 5 a.m. to do yoga with green juice, unless that's your thing, of course. I'm talking about simple practices you can start today with what you already have. Want to see? 1. Stop apologizing for wanting more. You don't have to feel guilty for wanting a comfortable life, for dreaming of better travel, a bigger home, financial security, or investing in yourself. Wanting more doesn't make you ungrateful. It makes you aware. Every time you say, "Oh, I'm happy as I am," just to avoid seeming ambitious, you silence the part of you that knows you're capable of more. 2. Celebrate every small win. Started charging better rates? Celebrate. Said no to a client who didn't value you? Celebrate. Saved $100 this month? Celebrate. These small milestones are like steps. Each one matters. Each one strengthens the new identity you're building. For you to escape the "when I have money, I'll change" cycle. This is a subtle trap. You postpone decisions, care, investments, waiting for money to show up. But what actually happens is the opposite. Money responds to your current positioning. When you start acting with responsibility, focus, and intention, money begins to treat you with more respect, because you're treating yourself that way. 4. Create your own ritual with money. Doesn't matter if you make $1,000 or $20,000. Set aside a moment each week just to look at your finances with care. Make it special. have a coffee, open your banking app, review your spending, plan your next step. Not as punishment, but as care. Money is a relationship, and if you ignore it, it pulls away. 5. Don't wait for confidence to act. Act to build confidence. You don't need to feel 100% ready to start. You just need to be willing to try something different. Self-confidence doesn't come first. It comes after each small win, each step forward, each boundary respected. I remember the first time I managed to save money and not touch it for a month. It wasn't much, but it felt huge. I wasn't rich, but I felt in control. And that feeling changes everything. When you realize you're capable of handling your money, even with little, you feel capable of handling your life. And that's the real turning point. You stop chasing external results and start building an internal foundation. It's not about doing everything perfectly. It's about not abandoning the woman you're becoming. If you've made it this far, you might already understand. Your relationship with money doesn't begin in your bank statement. It begins in the mirror. Self-esteem isn't just about feeling pretty or smart. It's about feeling capable, deserving, ready. And money, that neutral, powerful, and sensitive tool, responds to the way you see yourself. If you treat yourself like someone who just gets by, it will treat you the same. But when you start showing up as a woman who builds, who decides, who values herself, it follows. Maybe today you're still dealing with debt, limitations, insecurities. That's okay. That doesn't define you. What defines you are the steps you choose to take from here. If you leave this video with one single shift, let it be this. Stop seeing yourself as a woman who needs to earn prosperity, and start acting like someone who already knows she deserves it. Little by little, everything around you starts to respond. If this conversation resonated with you, leave a comment sharing what part hit home the most. And if you want to keep building this new version of your life with knowledge, awareness, and self-worth, subscribe to the channel. Here, money is a strong woman's topic. See you in the next video.